Welcome to the Midweek message. We're taking some lessons from the book of Ruth, and we're in chapter 2, and I'm going to be reading verses 4 through 7 of Ruth chapter 2 from the New International Version of the Bible. Ruth 2 and verse 4. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you, the Lord bless you," they answered. Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" The overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. She said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters.' She came into the fields and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter." And so we're following the story of Ruth and Naomi, her mother-in-law, and her sister-in-law Orpah was in for just a little bit in chapter 1. And Ruth and Naomi, after their husbands have died and Orpah has remained in the country of Moab, have come back to the area of Bethlehem, and they don't know what they're going to do. And so Ruth says to Naomi, "I'm going to find a field to go into and glean, pick up some food for us to eat. I'm going to go behind the harvesters after they have harvested and pick up things that have remained and go into the corners of the field, which the Jews were forbidden to harvest and were instructed to leave for the poor. And I'll get us some food, and it'll keep us going. And this is how we'll make ends meet." And so she did that. And she walked behind the harvesters, gleaned in the corners of the field. And as she was doing that, we pick up in verse 4, and let's look at these verses individually. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you," they answered. So lo and behold, she was in the field of a man named Boaz. And while she was working, Boaz came to the field. And he greeted the workers, said, "The Lord be with you." And they said, "God bless you. The Lord be with you as well, boss." Verse 5. Boaz asked the overseers of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" He looked around, saw Ruth gleaning, didn't recognize her, and said, "When did she join the team? Who did she come with? Who brought her? Did somebody invite her? Did she get hired while I was away?" And in verse 6, the overseer replied, "She's the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." And so the overseer of the harvesters identified her. And then he followed and said in verse 7, she said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." So she had requested to join the group and had no doubt told them something of her plight. And "Please let me glean." And this was permitted. This was acceptable. And then continuing in verse 7, the overseer of the harvesters said, "She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter." And so he said she has come and joined the group. She is gleaning to try to meet her own needs. And by the way, boss, she's a good worker. Now, God directs us, guides our paths, even when we don't know that he's doing it. God guided Ruth into a field unknowingly of a man who was going to ensure her future employ. And they noticed about her, they said, she's not only in need, she's a good worker. Sometimes when we get in need, we get so discouraged that we'll stop working. Never give up. Never let up. Keep going. God is in control of your life. He's directing your affairs. Keep a good reputation of being a good worker, an industrious and person who is dedicated to achievement.